very welcome back. Now, concern has been raised around planned new autism assessments, which the HSE has said it hopes will tackle the long waiting lists for assessment of needs for autistic people.
Well, joining us to discuss the new protocol is President of the College of Psychiatrists of Ireland, Dr. Lorcan Martin, and Chief Executive of Neurodiversity Ireland, Nessa Hill. Good morning to you both. Lorcan, the HSE's new autism protocol was announced last week, but what is the plan for autism assessment going forward?
I suppose, coming from the perspective of psychiatrists, the first thing I would point out is that autism is not a mental illness.
Yeah.
It's a neurodiversity. But the reason psychiatrists are involved is because many autistic people would also suffer mental health problems. They'd have an increased risk of anxiety, depression, suicide, psychosis, and so on. And also, we would need to be aware of people who are autistic when they're attending us, because they may present differently, and our therapies, for example, may need to be amended to accommodate them. So from that perspective, as a psychiatrist, we need to know about autism, but we don't treat it. The new protocol is bringing in what they're calling a tiered system, a layered system. And the biggest concern is around tier 1. And basically what they're doing is bringing in a system whereby there will be abridged or shortened forms of the full assessment at the tier 1 level. Mm-hmm. So our concerns there is that people will not necessarily be getting the full assessment that they otherwise might. And the people that are going into this tier 1 assessment process will be those that are saying the more obviously autistic people. The problem with that is that people may be diagnosed with autism who don't have it, or possibly it'll be missed in other people. So that's one of the big concerns we have. The other difficulty we have is that in order to get people off the waiting list, they're being moved into other services, be they child and adolescent mental health services, adult mental health services, or other primary care level services. Now, all that's really going to do is to put even bigger waiting lists onto already burgeoned services that are, already have waiting lists of their own. So that's the difficulty we have with it, that, people are not being served well by these new assessments, but also all it's really going to do is to shift the problem from one place to another.
Okay.
We have a statement here from the HSE. It says the autism protocol is a culmination of 5 years of work by the HSE. For the first time, there will be a standardised approach to conducting autism assessments across the HSE. The protocol is intended to provide a standardised and more specialised route for autism assessment, and the tiered approach means individuals with clear presentations of autism will undergo a less intensive assessment process, while more complex cases will be assessed under Tier 1 and Tier 2. And it was developed with input from people of lived experiences, all clinical disciplines involved, such assessments, as well as managers and services leaders across disability, primary care and mental health services. So the issue here is to liken it to if there's a queue at the door for people trying to get their driver's licence. But if they can, it's visible that they can drive, we'll just do an easier test, or we'll pass them on to people who aren't professional driving instructors. That's what I'm getting from this. So that sounds ludicrous. So why is this okay for our kids?
It's not a bad analogy. I suppose at one level it's a little simplistic, perhaps, if you'll excuse me saying it, but at the same time it's a good analogy. But what will happen is that people will get assessments, they just won't get the full assessment that they otherwise might. And that's one of the big concerns that we have. Mm-hmm. Because not everyone who is autistic and may appear autistic actually is. And people who are autistic may not necessarily be obvious. And they're separating this out into different layers and different tiers. But really, anyone who has suspected autism deserves a full evidence-based assessment. Mm. And when I say evidence-based, I mean assessments that have been rigorously validated through years of experience. So it's not enough just to say, oh, well, you appear autistic, so we'll give you a short form. That's not enough for anybody. And I mean, the impact on somebody who is autistic, if they aren't properly diagnosed, is huge, because it's a very big part of their lives. It's how they interact with the world. It has implications in terms of their mental health, which is where we were talking about earlier on about coming to psychiatrists. It has implications in terms of their social ability, it has implications in terms of their job and function and so on. So it's really important to get this right. And that's one of the things we have concerns about. And then the other, as I say, the other concern is that you're adding extra work onto already overburdened professionals, whether they're in mental health teams or other parts of the front line.
OK, let's bring Nessa in here because Nessa, Neurodiversity Ireland offers support for neurodivergent children, young people and their families. So what sort of response have you been hearing towards this new protocol?
Good morning. The overwhelming response has been that of confusion. Obviously, we're talking about the assessment of need waiting list, and that assessment of need was established under the 2005 Disability Act, which was an attempt by the government to help people to understand their needs, their disability, the nature of the disability, the impact on their day-to-day life, and what services were required in order to support that person. And we know that being autistic is a lifelong disability that is globally accepted. So the waiting list that is being attempted to be addressed is that of the assessment of need. And we know that schools are probably the biggest driver of pressure on the assessment of need waiting list, because the education system is currently set up to demand a diagnosis and a profile of the children's needs in order to be supported. So our difficulty with this protocol is that although there is a suggestion that there was consultation with the people that were affected, that's our families, that really wasn't an appropriate consultation. It came at the end of the 5-year process, and it wasn't an intensive consultation the way one would expect under the UNCRPD or involving any children who would be affected by this protocol. And our concern is that Tier 1 is really a rubber stamping exercise. So anybody that appears autistic will already know that they are autistic. And instead of assessing the need, what does that person need to be supported in society, a clinician is going to be able to say, well, now you're off my waiting list. This is totally at odds with other countries who operate a tiered approach like this. And our concern is that there are clinicians who might be inexperienced at Tier 1 who are going to say, well, you don't appear autistic to me, therefore you're going to exit my waiting list at that stage. Our other concern is that there's a really narrow focus on autism, whereas we know autism never travels separately. There is always something else, and this assessment process doesn't take account of ADHD. There will be no pathway for medication or treatment for children who don't have a moderate to severe mental challenge that is within the remit of CAMHS. Also, the most fundamental difficulty is that there's no support system. This assessment protocol doesn't lead to any support. We know already that there's a crisis in capacity in our children's disability network teams and in primary care. So this in our opinion, is just going to create another waiting list on top of an already overburdened system.
I mean, it seems like a waiting list problem as opposed to an assessment of needs problem. And the big issue here is for parents who are sending their kids to school who want the support there from an SNA, and then arises behavioural issues if they don't get that assessment. The current wait time we're looking at 27 months, and the HSE are hoping this will tackle that. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it may tackle that waiting list. It's just going to create another one. And I suppose another point that's really important is we often focus on children when we talk about autism. There are a lot of autistic adults who haven't been diagnosed, and there are very few support services for those, and there are almost no public assessment services for autistic adults. So this is going to cause a big problem. And Nessa touched on it a moment ago in terms of consultation. Many of us were quite late to the game in terms of the consultation process. So it was presented to us almost as a fait accompli. And both ourselves and the College of Psychiatrists and many other organisations had serious concerns about it. And not all of those concerns have been addressed. So as you said yourself, Eric, this is a waiting list initiative. It's not providing a service. We need all the surrounding support services for somebody who is autistic. And of course, I should point out that many autistic people function very well without supports, but there are very many that need quite a lot of supports, and then there are those in between. So there's no point creating this and then not providing the resources to back it up.
Okay. So what recommendations are you suggesting that are put in place? Because the system that's there, it does need to be fixed, because the amount of people, I'm parent to an autistic child, so I know that we were given a diagnosis and then told, close the door behind you, because we weren't given any references or any numbers or any places to go. They just said, contact the HSE, they might provide you with something. So something needs to be fixed. So what do you recommend?
I think, first of all, we need specialist teams. It's not sufficient to just try and shoehorn autistic assessments or people with autism into existing teams. Obviously, for example, if someone develops a mental health problem, then they could be seen by a mental health team. But outside of that, the other supports should be provided by specialist teams. The assessments themselves, which are lengthy and comprehensive if done properly, should be provided by specialist teams. And there need to be resources put in place for that. But also, as Nessa touched on, autism doesn't travel by itself. it frequently accompanies other things, dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, and so on. So at the risk of using a cliche, we do need the joined-up thinking when it comes to neurodivergence. It's not enough to have a programme for one bit of it. It needs to be a comprehensive approach.
Dr. Lorcan Martin, thank you very much for coming and talking to us today. Really appreciate it.
And Nessa, thank you very much
Nessa as well. Thank you very much for joining us, Nessa.